Acrylic sheets are available in a lot of thicknesses, colors, and finishes. The most common thickness that you'll find out there is 1/8 inch. Full-size sheets will typically come in a standard 48 by 96 inch size, but there are a lot of options out there for sheets that have already been cut down to a more manageable size to fit your laser. When you think about acrylic, you probably mostly think about it as being clear, but there are a lot of colors and finishes available. You can find acrylic in solid and transparent colors, and with gloss and matte finishes. There are even mirrored acrylics, which are pretty awesome to work with. Special printable acrylics also exist if you need that option too. One important thing to mention here, acrylic is manufactured in two ways. It can be cast or extruded. Both methods produce a visibly similar material which both work in lasers. However, there are going to be slight differences between them in relation to laser use, which I will mention later when appropriate. You can't beat the price of acrylic. We currently pay $58 for a 48 by 96 inch extruded sheet that we have cut down at no charge into smaller pieces that fit in our lasers. That gives us a square inch cost of under 2 cents. You can find acrylic from a lot of sources, both local and online. The manufacturer of your laser might sell sheets online that are sized to fit in your specific machine, but this would probably be the most expensive option. You're better off buying from a place like Amazon, where sellers are forced to offer more competitive prices. We'll provide links to some good options in the description below. If you're looking for just a sheet or two, you should be able to find some in your local hardware store. A better option would be to see if you have a local plastics fabricator in the area, like a TAP Plastics or equivalent. They would have a better selection of sizes, thicknesses, and colors. They might even sell their scrap pieces, which is a great way to get a variety to play with. If you intend to use a lot of acrylic, then you might see if you can find a commercial plastic supplier or distributor. You might have to buy in larger quantities than from other sources, but this would undoubtedly be your best option in terms of cost. Acrylic has good laserable characteristics. It is very easy to cut and engrave. Unlike a natural product, you know that you will get consistent results from one piece to another. Acrylic is also flat, and if it is stored correctly, warping is not an issue. All acrylic comes from the factory with a protective mask applied to both sides. This mask will not only protect the material from dust and scratches, but can keep it free of burn marks during the lasering process. If you use cast acrylic, it will come with a paper mask that can be left on during engraving to create a temporary stencil for paint filling after. Getting a flame polished edge is one of the best benefits of cutting acrylic with a laser. If you are processing acrylic using traditional power tools like a table saw or router, you'd get a dull, matte finished edge. This then has to be polished by running a torch along it. The laser cuts and polishes in one step. As I mentioned earlier, acrylic is manufactured by casting or extrusion methods. Extruded acrylic is more melty, so it cuts really well, but it doesn't engrave well. For engraving, you want to use cast acrylic. The trade-off is that cast acrylic is going to be more expensive. Extruded acrylic typically comes with a plastic mask on that you really don't want to leave on when cutting, as it is more difficult to remove after. The paper mask that comes on a cast acrylic, depending on the brand, can be a real bear to remove. Also, if the acrylic sits around too long with the paper mask on, the mask can be harder to remove, and the mask's adhesive can leave a hazy-like ghost image behind after it's removed. This is going to be an issue if you need truly optically clear pieces. If you're storing acrylic sheets, you can avoid this by making sure you rotate your inventory to use up older acrylic first. If the acrylic isn't masked, depending on how you're cutting or engraving it, you might experience hazing on the top and especially the bottom. Having the acrylic masked will eliminate this issue, but you might not always be able to use a mask. A pin table or supports to lift the acrylic away from the cutting table can help keep the bottom clean. Dish soap applied to the surface and washed away later is supposed to also work to keep the surface clean, but it's not a method we've used. The smell of acrylic. Above all else, this might be your biggest consideration when working with acrylic. The smell can get really bad depending on how you're processing it. For example, lightly engraving acrylic will produce very little smell compared with, say, cutting a lot of thin acrylic or cutting through thicker pieces. One way to mitigate the smell is to make sure you're using only cast acrylic. Besides being better for engraving, cast acrylic is not nearly as smelly as extruded acrylic. Regardless, even if you're using only cast acrylic, if you're processing a lot of it on a regular basis, you will generate a smell. If you are using a charcoal filtration unit, the charcoal will absorb the smell, but will quickly become overwhelmed and need to be replaced, which can be expensive. You're better off exhausting the fumes outside your facility. If you can go up and out the roof, the better. However, if the wind is blowing just right, you might still piss off your neighbors. Even if you're in a commercial setting, I guarantee there will be someone that doesn't like the smell you're producing. We've learned over time that people that aren't around laser smells on a regular basis seem to be a lot more sensitive to those smells.
Duh.
Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think and whether or not you'll be using acrylic with more of your laser projects. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to get notified of future projects. We have more videos coming soon. Stay tuned.